Welcome to That's Good Craic podcast episode number 31. And how are you doing, lads? I'm joined here with Mick and Colin. How are you, guys?
What's the crack, lads?
How are you getting on?
Good now. How's lockdown treating you, lads?
Living the dream.
Every day, man. Said it before, say it again. I wake up and
Very good, very good. Well, guys, today we are joined by a guest from Dublin. Our guest today is award-winning radio producer and wellness scientist, and she will be talking to us about power of positivity and action. So I'd like to welcome Marian Shanley as I spill over my own words.
How you doing? I'm having my cup of coffee.
Welcome.
Hey, Marian. Very welcome.
Marian.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, lads. How are you all?
Good. How are you finding lockdown?
I'm absolutely loving it. I know that sounds mad, and I'm going to be one of the few that probably admits to it. I think once I got past the initial shock and the fear and the uncertainty, and then I've gotten into a routine of actually doing damn all, to be quite honest, it also has opened me up to looking at myself, because I spent so much time looking at other people and helping other people along the way that I've actually finally stopped long enough, and I've hit that pause button. And I was asking for that pause button for about 6 months solid before this came. And so I was thinking, do I live in a matrix? Have I actually created this for myself for a split second? Because I actually did want time out. And to be quite honest, I also think this is a lovely time for us to actually reestablish connections with people and not have any excuse anymore. Sorry, I'm too busy. Sorry, I'm doing this. Or, you know, we now are in a position where we can actually do what we said we were going to do. And also all those 80% projects that I have kind of left sitting because I didn't have time, I literally have been doing them. It's been complete madness and I'm loving it.
100%. I mean, with us guys as well, we've been able to commit a lot more to the podcast, really, haven't we, lads?
Yeah, absolutely. Building it every day. It's easy after starting to consume me over the last few days, especially, you know.
Yeah, and Colin, on that note, you've been doing a lot of work on the website, haven't you? We're about to launch soon enough.
I can't wait to launch that. That is going to be probably the greatest website that was ever developed by anyone. I'm even joking. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, no, but it's been great for us, especially like being able to do that. Even connecting with Marian here at 12 o'clock on a Thursday. You know, it's pretty cool just to be able to do that. Like we spoke about before, it's hard to even nail down an evening over the course of a month. You know?
Yeah, I know.
It can be really difficult for us to find a time together over a month's period to get that same hour together. That's the way it gets sometimes, you know. So it's been great in that sense, you know. The only thing I miss work. I don't know. I miss actually being out there and doing stuff. But I miss going to restaurants. It's that kind of thing. But I'm grand. I could sit at home for years.
But we have been focused in, I suppose, Marian, like you're saying yourself, on there is positives to this, you know what I mean? That the natural instinct is to focus on the negative side of it, like, you know, and there are negative sides to it, there absolutely. But like you, I think we've all seen positive things in our own lives and in other people's lives, you know, from having that time just to hit pause and to go, whoa, you know what I mean? I'm missing out on a lot of stuff here. And what I'm hoping is that what I can take from it is, because life is going to go back, you know what I mean? I'm praying, like, you know what I mean, that we will be going back to work and the business and all that type of thing, but that I can bring some of this stuff that I'm after learning from this, that actually I'm going to give more time to myself. There's things that I actually want to do, like maintaining my meditation every day, you know, linking in with friends, being involved in creative endeavors, like, you know what I mean? When they are offered up to me, not to go, oh, I just don't have the time. Actually, no, listen, I'm going to make the time, you know, because you get a lot out of it, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because the week before COVID hit, I was teaching Kundalini yoga every week up in Clondalkin, and I had quite a few people doing the classes with me, and it actually stopped. I'll come back. And I actually stopped the classes, which was really amazing, that almost like, and I'll use the word universe, created this, but I do think that there was a change and a shift coming for us all, because what was going to happen next is, I think that, you know, we're going to keep going on the same treadmill of life and maybe not really look at the core values of what are really important. And that's one thing I've noticed has been reestablished. Not that I thought I needed it, but I certainly have upped my value of so many things. Like even just being able to take time with you guys today is still precious to me.
Super. And what I'd like to know is kind of what, because you're very much into wellness and well-being. What got you into that, the wellness and well-being? Like, where did that start for you? Where did that journey start?
Okay, well, I grew up in Trim, and my background was playing in the Castle Ruins. And I came from a magical little place that I remember as 3, one of the neighbors, a young teenager, was in a serious car accident and came home in a wheelchair. And I noticed that he wasn't feeling well. And I realized, I went up, gave him a hug, and I knew something, that hugs could help people. And then I singularly in my mind made a decision that that's what I wanted to do, is help people feel better. And as simple as it sounds, I kept that ethos inside of me all my life. And when I got to teenage years, I was totally lost in so far as there was no title on that. There's nowhere you could go with, oh, you're a nice person, you can now get paid for it, and here's the job to do it. So I started getting involved in reflexology and any courses that meant it was about helping other people. And I also was very passionate about music, and I knew that was also self-therapy for me, because I was bullied when I was a teenager by one of my teachers, who was a science teacher, actually. We won't name her, but anyway, the bottom line is I decided that music and also being kind was an amazing, amazing gift to bring to the planet. And so I followed through with that and took my journey from there, I suppose. And I didn't get it right every time, but I was so courageous when I look back now and think about it. I never gave up. I simply didn't, even though when I hit a brick wall and I thought, okay, you've tried that, now try something else. And I never had a title for the job that I was doing, apart from I knew I was making a difference. I knew I was doing it with compassion, and I knew I was doing it with kindness. And I took a one-way ticket because I thought Ireland got too small and it wasn't in Ireland. And I flew to New York, and I took a couch, a friend of mine in Queens, and I stayed in America for a year with osteopaths, chiropractors, blue-green algae, everything you can think of. And I learned as much as possible. And one night I had a dream, and the dream was about this guy working with plants. And I booked a flight the very next day and flew back to Ireland. And it just so happened, I said it to my dad, and he said, I know who that is. There's a fella called Sean Boylan, who is the manager of Meath team, because my dad's an ex-Meath footballer from years ago. And I went to Sean, and he said, Marian, that's herbal medicine. And a week later, I booked a flight to England, and I studied herbal medicine. So look, it's been a journey of picking up as many tools for my life toolbox as possible to get to a point where I can define a specific role. And I've always managed to bring media and the creative arts as a form of therapy. And also I made a promise to myself that I didn't want people looking at me and saying she's a quack and she's doing this because she feels good about it and she's all earthy and holistic and all the rest. There's nothing wrong with that. But I got a science degree behind me. I got media studies, communications, loads of education behind me, because the most powerful tool you can have is knowledge. And I didn't want it just to be innate knowledge. I wanted to prove to myself, for my self-esteem, that I was also smart. And it wasn't just, you know, the girl thing that got me through the door when it came to life. But I've always stuck with the one thing, is that if I'm a nice person, even if I don't do anything else, if I say to somebody, how are you? I'm making a difference on this planet.
Would I be right in saying that Trim is a small town?
Yeah, it is a small, well, it's gotten very big. It's one of the most sort of, I suppose everybody desires to live there right now. I wouldn't go back and live there because it was the start of my journey, but it is a beautiful cultural town. Yeah, it's lovely.
I can relate to a lot of that story that you spoke about. I grew up in Carlowtown, which is the same. It's kind of a big town now, but it was a small town, you know?
Yeah.
And how, like, it takes a lot of drive, like you did, to end up from Trim to New York to London. You know, that takes a strong, driven human being, you know? I kind of, when you spoke about going to New York on a couch, you know, not on a couch. You didn't fly to New York on a couch.
The magic couch.
Anything's possible.
Marian and her magic couch.
I know lots of people that have traveled the world from the couch. They're usually on other stuff. But I done the same thing. I got up one day and just said, you know, I can only achieve a certain amount in Ireland. And I was still in Carlo at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And I contacted someone in London and they said, oh, come over. I was there 5 days later, there with no contacts, no anything. And within a few weeks I was working and that, and I can understand that drive and that want to, you know, to see bigger, to see bigger than the environment that we're kind of in at that moment. And I admire that in people because it's bravery, and that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. You know, you're a brave.
Thank you.
As everything else.
Well, I also wanted to meet people like me. I felt there wasn't, you know, I felt like I didn't belong. And even though I was well loved and I wasn't pushed out of the nest or anything like that, my biggest thing was it was all about what I needed inside of me to find out. And there was something bigger driving me. Mm-hmm. Really, there was a sense of destiny as well, that there was more to life. And also, I have this absolute craving and hunger for life, for mm-hmm. being alive, mm-hmm. for the excitement of the moment. And even people say, oh, I hate flying and I hate trains. But when I sit on a train, I'm so excited because I can hear the beat of the train and I start making music in my head, and it's a drum beat and there's a rhythm to it. And then I'm sitting there and I'm writing on the ticket a piece of poetry. So for me, every second is of great, great value in life, because you do not know when you're gone. That's it. And I promised myself, in the tradition of my granny, who I mentioned, that I don't want to be looking around regretting having not done in my life when I'm in my 80s, sitting there and please God with grandkids and family members or whoever, or a dog, whatever, around me, and say, I didn't try. And the worst thing I could do is not have courage. And sure, what have I got to lose, honestly? And I think that's the key, is to put yourself outside your fear and your comfort zone if it's good for you. And that's what I always do. I always take on a challenge every single year for myself. And I have to line up something this year, to be quite honest, because I haven't done anything yet. Perhaps this is my challenge, you three.
It's but like a couple of things that resonated there with me, Marian, was fear, you know, and I don't know, like, and regret. You know, these are two things that, like, it can be a fine line. You know, if a thing can be a negative or a positive, like, and you can use both for either side. You know, like, fear stopped me so much in my life. You know what I mean? And basically, when I would use drink or drugs, it kind of covered up that the uneasiness inside me about not living true to my life. You know what I mean? It was like it just made me, you know, all right, you know, and just went along doing very little. I did have gifts like everyone, you know what I mean? I had gifts, I had talents. I found them very difficult to acknowledge, you know, and you know, I was able to convince myself that this was the life I wanted to live, sitting on the couch, you know, not going to New York, you know. And you know, when I stopped drinking and using drugs, like meeting people like Colin and Danny, you know, and who were like outgoing and wanted to do things and experience stuff, like, I mean, I just opened up to it and I said, yeah, listen, if someone asked me to do something, I'm just going to do it. I did that while I was drinking and using, you know what I mean? It got me into a lot of trouble. So I was like, when I stopped that, I was like, you know, if people are going to be asking me to do positive stuff, I'm going to say, yeah. And yes, I had fear. Yes, I had fear of looking like a fool. You know, all these things, especially in the early days, you know, and but put myself out in my comfort zone, and you know, the experiences I started to have, that's life. You know what I mean? It's like, unless you're a bit fearful about something, like, it's the stuff that you're fearful about that's, like, you know, that you're pushing through. That's where the essence of life is. That's where you're actually, like, I mean, that's it. Like, that's the zest. That's the kind of thing of not plodding along. But I have a fear now, because I regretted so much of my life, you know what I mean? Because I made a mess of an awful lot of things, being irresponsible and all that while I was drinking and using, that when I came in, I made a conscious decision to try and amend a lot of that stuff, and you know that I could look back and not wince when I think about my past, you know, and that meant going and acknowledging stuff and going to people that I'd done things to, and you know what I mean, try to make it right. And by doing that, I was kind of starting with a new slate in a lot of cases. And a lot of my life is around now is like being like thinking about your granny situation and going, I don't want to be at that point in my life and regretting it. You know, going, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I try that? And actually living alcohol and drug free for me makes it possible for me to live that way. You know, I don't, the weeks and the months and the years aren't getting lost in this haze of, like, you know what I mean, just plodding along. You know what I mean? I look at lads and you know, they never look at, they never be calling themselves an alcoholic, but they're heading up to town there, they're walking home with 6 cans in a bag, and you're going to yourself, really? Come on, man. You know what I mean? There's more to this, you know. And if I was back there, that would just be okay for me. A bottle of wine, 6 cans, whatever it may be, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's it. Do you know what I mean? And lots more. But like, no, it's just the kind of say I did relate to those two things of, like, you know, there can be, fear can be brought up, like, you know, you get a fear of regret, you know, and that can turn into a negative thing, but it can be a very, very positive motivation as well, to doing things, you know, and experiencing stuff.
Yeah, I think we've been taught that fear is a negative thing, and that was something that happened for me. I have 3 children under 14. Okay, I'm 14, and Harry just turned 13, and Aaron is 10, and very close together. And then I went through a separation when Aaron was 3. So I've had to rear them on my own. And I remember the first instinct for me was not fear, it was relief. And it was the fear of being in a situation or having a lifestyle that was already in you. It's not the fear of leaving it, it's actually the fear of staying and not making positive changes. So for me, positive action is something I absolutely, and I support anybody on any level. I'll come back to, you know, who makes and takes a brave change out of a situation that doesn't serve their soul. And what you did was you took on something that wasn't serving your soul as well. And I think courage can be taught to you, but I also think that you can learn courage too. And I remember fear, going back to the first birth. I was terrified because I was the girl that was never getting married, never having children. So giving childbirth was not something I was ever going to do. And then I went to somebody and I had a talk, and we had a discussion about fear. And all of a sudden I just got it. Fear is not negative. It's actually lack of preparation. When you're not prepared for something and you don't have your ducks in a row and you've no idea of what's going to happen, that's fear. And I think I prepared myself. I got myself into a position where I knew what I was going to do. And then I just trusted. And that's what I do. I absolutely take positive action when it comes to any kind of stuff that comes up. And then, of course, I do love the fear and the adrenaline of the excitement of talking to you guys and stuff that I'm not sure of, but I know is safe. Relatively safe.
I think that's a big thing for me personally, like throughout my life is kind of, it's crippled me on many levels, you know, fear, where I've gone from having that fear, like, you know, whatever it is, stepping up and talking in front of people. You know, when I gave up drinking drugs, the first time I ever picked up a piece of paper and read like I was in a classroom again, I had fear doing that. Like, I genuinely had fear just reading that piece of paper in front of people. And it started for me with those small things, like that first time reading a document in front of 4 people, and I was nervous, afraid of doing it. And then the more I kind of trusted, as you said, and just said, okay, let's step through that fear. And every time I've stepped through the fear with courage, I've grown more and been able to take on more things that I'm afraid of, you know, and grown through that. And I think that's the big thing. I mean, for you, how would you kind of process that fear when it comes? I mean, you talked about it there, but when you have that moment, say, for example, I don't know, if you've got a moment where you're about to go on air and, you know, you're a little bit nervous about it. Maybe it's someone you're interviewing that, you know, you're nervous about interviewing them. How do you deal with manage that kind of fear? I
look back at an experience where I was actually terrified because I I remember when I was about 7 being hit by a nun because I was a child genius at maths, and I never really could grasp maths after that. So I stopped asking questions in school, and I stopped speaking. And every time I'd go to raise my hand to ask a question, you know that dream where you can't speak? I literally had that in real life. I'd be like, and nothing would come out of my mouth. And it's so ironic that now all I do is talk, that you can't shut me up literally, because I love that. I absolutely love that. But what gets me over something that I'm afraid of is going back and giving myself this and saying, you already did that. What on earth are you doing to yourself trying to make this a problem that you've already overcome so much? You've achieved so much, and you've faced so much pain. You've already shown you're a warrior and you have courage. And if you can find a simple example that will recalibrate the fear a little bit and say to you, what's going to happen here? Is really this so important that you have to be afraid of it and put it into perspective? Because perspective is one of the best things that I use in my life, is to say, I had a child who was born with kidney reflux, Harry. He's 13 now, thank God. But before he was born, I knew he had kidney reflux, and I had 5 years in and out of Crumlin, and it was the worst and most stressful time. I don't think I actually spoke for 5 years with the fear. And he had 5 general anesthetics, and he had so much going on at the time, and now he's 100% recovered. And I remember I went back to that moment the day I drove out of Crumlin, and it still gets me here. And that's what's good, is that I still am connected to my emotions. We're not meant to be robots. And I think to myself, I swore, nothing is more important than your health. Are you alive? Are you breathing? Are the people that you love around you still here? Well, the rest really doesn't matter. So I am, and I'm not just saying this, I am absolutely fearless when it comes to stuff. I don't sweat the small stuff, because when it comes to the really important stuff, like love and health and family, and nothing else matters. So I recalibrate it with proper examples of what it is that is important in life. Because honestly, the worst thing you can do to yourself is beat yourself up over what you can and can't do. When if you just say, you know what, I'm just going to be me. What have I got to lose? If I'm me, then I'm happy and I'll be all right. That's all that matters.
Just wanted to circle back there to your kind of professional life and so on, you know?
Yeah.
And have you ever managed to kind of marry the two together in sense of what you do in media and then holistic, the herbal medicine and those kind of things that you educated yourself on?
Colin, that's such a good idea. Good question, because do you know what? It's because of lockdown that I've actually looked at that very question myself, because I've been so passionate.
It is a huge area nowadays. You know, it's a very much a growth industry, especially online. Every second video promotional thing is all this kind of stuff, you know, how you can be better, how you can, you know, move forward as a better person.
Yeah. I realized that I am so good at promoting everybody else that the one thing I didn't do was promote myself. And that's where I've reestablished the focus. Even though I was just saying I've set up a website myself, but it still isn't the essence and the complete picture of who I am. So I also do talks and motivational speeches. And my biggest thing is that it isn't just about me being a medical herbalist. It isn't just about me being a producer and a radio host as well. What I see now is that I've got to get back to the real picture of who I am, and it's Marian Shanley and what I can do for other people. And I do think that this is leading me on to a new project which I've been sort of put on the back burner for a while, like yourselves. But because I've been forced to now face me and not look at everybody else since the past few weeks of lockdown, I've really seen that I've been struggling with two worlds, like the right and left side of my brain. I have these really dynamic sides that don't connect a lot of the time. So I go between one to the other, and I try to keep them, connected together. But I have a plan finally. Even in the past 48 hours, I realized that it isn't about what I do. My journey is about who I am. And that's what I'm going to do next with everything that's happening. And see if I can bring this energy and this knowledge and everything I've learned in life to people. on some sort of platform. And I think because of my experience, it's time now that I got a team behind me to push me forward to help more people. Because I've always been an advocate of helping children in particular, and younger children. And my main focus in the back of my head is to give children the tools and the power, and that perhaps I didn't have when I was younger, apart from music and creation, and let them have a better life. And somehow that will always be behind my work. So quietly, it's not ever been about me, ever. It's been about me making a difference, like that 3-year-old little girl who saw a man in a wheelchair and I gave him a hug. That's who I am, and I have to figure a way of moving that together. Now, I'm not saying I have it completely together just yet, but I know it's now more about people pushing me forward and me stopping pushing people forward. And so I have a plan. I won't say what it is yet, but please God, you can talk to me in a year's time and I'll reveal what that is as well.
Excellent. And you won an award this year, didn't you?
I did, actually.
For helping?
Yeah. I went to Apollo House one Christmas. The children's grandmother was dying of cancer at the time. It was the first Christmas I didn't have them. So again, I recalibrated and I said, okay, I could be very sad and lonely here on Christmas Day, or I can reach out and help people who are worse off than me. So got in my car, drove up to Dublin, drove through the gates into Apollo House, and I was there helping out. And there was a couple proposed to each other. And I offered my wedding dress, which obviously I wasn't going to be using again. And I said, I'd help you get a wedding together. So I pulled a white wedding together by the July following, with the help of a nation of people, and a complete white wedding, including everything you could possibly think of, with a zero budget, and there was nothing outstanding at the end. And I believe in anything is possible if you simply believe in it. So I've been working with homeless. I've also been working with children, and I've been a national speaker for Teen Line charity. So I worked with them as a volunteer, and also traveling around schools talking about core values, and also talking about how important it is to understand that even though I'm a complete stranger, there are people like me who actually give a damn about them. And interesting enough, I got an award, a help award, which is a humanitarian award, because I'm the kind of person who never looks for anything back. But it was so nice for a change for people to say, well done. And I actually was really proud of myself, because it wasn't just that, it was the fact that, you know what, I'm making a mark and I am influencing positive change. And there are so many people in this world, from mothers to daughters to grannies, that are not getting the credit that they deserve. And if I can represent any of them for just being me and doing the work that I do, and I was standing up there for not just the women in this country, but our ancestors as well, who've gone through so much as a parent, but still have the energy to help other people, then I was standing for everybody, every woman in this country, because you know what? It is nice when somebody says, well done to you. So yeah, it's a nice little thing to get, you know, and yeah, it's great to get something back after years of working with people quietly in the background. You know, I've done so much over the years, but I've done it from a good heart. That's the one thing I'll say. I was never looking for anything out of it, and I never will. So long as I know one child on this planet, or one human being, has an improved life, and I was part of that, I'm good with it, you know.
It can be, I suppose, when you're talking about kind of helping people and so on, like we were talking to a psychologist on our last podcast, and one of the things that, you know, I suppose came up was mental health around this area, or this lockdown kind of time. And so I suppose, I know I was quite anxious at the start of this, because I was afraid I was going to catch this monster of COVID-19. And, you know, every night I was feeling like I had, you know, I could feel the symptoms, and, you know, it was driving me crazy for a couple of weeks, you know.
Yeah.
I suppose from your kind of studies with herbal, as a herbalist and herbal medicine and stuff like that, is there stuff or anything we can do in that area to kind of help with, you know, stress and anxiety at the minute, you know?
So obviously your immune system, 70% of it is in your bowels. So I suggest everybody start paying attention to the foods that they're taking in, because it doesn't have a massive impact. And one of the biggest mucus forming agents that you could possibly take is dairy. And I would cut back on that for 100%, because if you're going to start creating more problems and start getting worried about stuff internally, why don't you take charge of this fear and do something positive? So line your ducks up in a row by saying, right, firstly, I'm going to reduce the impact on my immune system from other areas so that I'm prepared and that I can build up some sort of defense mechanism in my body. So simple things like alkalizing yourself as well. Now, it takes a while to do that, but I would say even lemon juice in water has a massive effect on your body as well, because that will help you to start creating a defense system that will be a little bit stronger. Now, obviously, there are herbs there that will make a difference. So if you think you have sniffles or that you're building up mucus, and you just tend to do that anyway, there's a brilliant herb called Plantago lanceolata. It's basically plantain. It is absolutely brilliant for the immune system, and it's something I would suggest that even taking a few drops of makes a massive difference to your body as well. And it can suppress your body's natural response to make lots and lots of mucus, and it can actually dry up the effect of mucus in your respiratory system as well. Now, one of the favorite herbs that I love using is also eucalyptus. You know, the koala bears, they're normally narky little creatures unless they're chewing down on eucalyptus leaves. So don't get them when they're not much in the eucalyptus, because that actually.
But don't they get high off the eucalyptus leaves? They get stoned. It's like a hallucinogenic.
Do they?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh no, that's just a myth.
No. I tried it a couple of years ago. It's definitely the truth.
But the koala bears do look pretty stoned.
Yeah, they do look. They look fair. That's what I was thinking. Maybe you're right. They always look really out of it, koala bears, you know.
Listen, I'm an amateur when it comes to drug experimentation. All I would say is, like, I have a clean slate here. So but however, one Christmas I did get always oil, and I confused it with the nasal spray thing. So I tilted my head back and I poured it down my nostril, and it was New Year's Eve. I do not remember that New Year's Eve, because I was completely in this place. Now, I don't say, please, people don't go out there and get Albus oil and decide this is, but it has this effect of very calming, a carminative effect as well. And your nervous system can be very different from how your psychedelic response in your body as well. So there's lots of elements to plants that in certain dosages, you get a certain amount of effect. And it's all dosage based as well. And every plant has a different efficacy as well to the plant itself. So that's why it hasn't been really been controlled by orthodox medicine, because you can't guarantee one plant is the same dose as the other one. The most important thing when it comes to plants and anything you take in is make sure it's appropriate for you. Whatever medication you're already on, it doesn't have a side effect on that. But when it comes to your immune system, you could be taking something like the eucalyptus. Do you remember years ago, they used to put drops into boiling a basin of water, and you put a towel over your head and you start to sniff it up? Seriously, that is one of the best things you could be doing right now for the virus, because it gets up into your sinuses, which is where the impact of the virus is, because it loves the mucous membranes, and also your throat. And that's your defense mechanism. That's why you've hairs in there, and you've got basically the right amount of mucus in here. If you can protect your body from inhaling or absorbing the virus itself through this defense wall, and also then you prepare yourself by doing like a nasal cleanse, which will be that steaming. Plus, viruses don't like temperature. And also this particular protein virus, it has a fatty membrane that adheres. So it's basically, when it hits your skin, it's almost like a Velcro effect. And that's why they keep saying use loads and loads of soap. So hot water is not going to kill it off. But if you use something like the oils from eucalyptus, and also you use soap, it will clear it off as well. And they kill it stone dead. Like, I know people who are using soap and water just on their nasal passages as well. So the bottom line is, build your immune system up. Try not get too stressed about this. Follow the information that's out there. But if you do suspect or you're worried about it, why not build up your immune system? Start looking at your diet, protect your bowel, make sure that you're happy and healthy in yourself when it comes to the foods. And also the other thing is as well, everybody's gone mad eating rubbish. I know a lot of people who wouldn't normally eat rubbish this time of year are eating biscuits and buns and cakes and chocolates, and it's a nurturing thing. But there's a point where you have to say, okay, I'm going to commit to some positive food action and some exercise. Exercise will burn off a virus, by the way, as well, because it hates oxygen. The specific strain, this protein, hates oxygen. So if you work out every day, if you jump on the spot, that's another way of killing this off as well. So your immune system, there's loads and loads of herbs out there. I've attempted to set up a website called marianshanley.com. I'm going to have to get some help, Colin.
We should have a chat after this, Marian.
We will. More chats, yeah.
Marian, just on a personal note, like my diet was dreadful, even when I came around first. But before, say, I would have gotten off drinking drugs, my diet consisted of I had a fast food restaurant beside me, and they sold hot dogs for $2.50 a piece, €2.50 a piece, and I thought that this was the best deal ever. I thought it was a mistake he was after making. I was like, literally, I would walk in sheepishly and go like, could I get 2 hot dogs, please? And I used to be going, I cannot believe that he is selling this much food for $2.50. But that was literally like that was my diet. And so when I came in, I was like, and I started this journey. My sister, God bless her, she bought me this big bottle of Source of Life Gold. It's like it's a multivitamin, but it's all made from natural kind of stuff. But just to say, I used to take this in the morning, and I used to get this euphoric feeling. And I was in work, and I'd say it, and they were saying, "That doesn't make any sense. It hasn't got time to go into your blood and all this type of thing." But what they have learned, like science has proven now, is that your gut knows when something. Now, my body was craving, sustenance so much that when it went in, it was going, "Oh my God, yes, this is the stuff." That's what was going on. But like, it took me a long time to actually make the connection of my well-being and what I put into my body. So like, I was still eating all these things, like, that were really affecting me gut, like, pizzas and all this type of thing. And it was driving me guts mad. And like, on the extreme end of things, there was a study done years ago. I remember my brother-in-law sent it on to me, and it was like about people who come into recovery and got like clean, like from drug addiction. And they took 100 people, and they let them eat as they would just naturally go on, not doing their normal thing, and they put them on a 12-step program, and it had like the normal very low percentage of success, and then they tested everyone in another group for nutrients and vitamin deficiencies. And what they did was they gave them a daily dose of what vitamins they need, or nutrition, all that, and got them balanced. And along with a 12-step program, 100% of them sustained sobriety. And like, what's clicked in my head is that, like, your mood, like, it can be a subtle thing, can change your mood. And a lot of the time, especially in the early days of this, it can just be a low mood that can be enough, that is exaggerated by your inability to experience it properly, but like, it's blown out proportion maybe. But that it's so important, like, but what you put in, like you're talking about, I take kefir now, like, on a daily basis. I find that is just amazing for my gut. And the difference, like, that I realize how little I experienced that anxiety feeling in my body since I started doing that. And what I believe is that, like, once I'm addressing my gut, a lot of the time I wasn't feeling anxious. It was just a normal day, but my gut wasn't feeling okay. So it manifests into the anxiety, that a lot of the time I'm not actually experiencing proper anxiety. It's just something that's happening internally me. But it's a massive thing for me. It's the thing I try to adhere to. I have started eating a lot more sugar, since this lockdown, and it is affecting me. I'm trying to get back away from it, because that was another massive thing for me. Controlling my sugar intake, leaving it just to like honeys and a few dates and things like that during the day, rather than like, chocolate and sweets, is a big difference. But
apples are great.
Affect your well-being.
Apples are brilliant for stabilizing your sugar. So, and that's also a nice little trick, is to start just eating apples, peel the skin off, and most of them are sprayed about 6 times. So I'd suggest, get some apples into you. But you're so right. Imagine what the feeling is like when you're starving, like literally starving. So a lot of your character traits that you see in children, this is a prime example, can be that they're deficient in certain minerals and certain elements that they absolutely need to survive, and also to be happy in themselves, to actually be the true character that they're meant to be. So multiply that by 10 and then look at an adult who's deficient. So I have worked with people who have had mental stress and nervous reactions and anxiety, and giving them magnesium, and also increase their water intake, because a lot of people are dehydrated all the time, literally all the time, you know. And also people get confused. They think, I'm hungry, mooch in the fridge, go and look around, and it's actually they're thirsty. They're literally just looking for fluids into their body. And the amount of people that are just deficient in basic mineral elements, it's phenomenal. That you need, it's one of the greatest highs in your life, is that first sensation when your body gets satiated by food, and that you feel actually 100% like you've gotten something you've been missing for so long. And that's something that people should look at, is that it mightn't be you that there's something wrong with. It could be your diet. It could be, you know, this stuff you're putting into your body. I always say to people that come into me, and I say this analogy, I say, right, why are you treating yourself like a Ford Fiesta? Right, no offense to Ford. Okay, when you're a Lamborghini, when you're actually a Lamborghini. So you're trying to put in this wonky diesel stuff in, when you really need this high fuel element that's tailored specifically to your type. Because you see that there, you are that original. There's nobody else on this planet with that thumbprint. So why on earth are we copying each other, eating the same rubbish, doing the same thing? Wouldn't it be nice if we actually just took a little bit of time to love ourselves a little bit more, and say, what is the need of my body? What serves my soul? And what food is going to get me to that Lamborghini stage, or whatever high-end car you think. I'll say Bugatti, because that's my favorite. And it's very important that you start redefining the value of you when it comes to food, and take positive action. And that's something I keep saying, is that if you go and you're mooching and you go to every shelf on your fridge and you go, I don't know what I want, that means you don't have what you need in the fridge. So start replacing it with what maybe years ago your ancestors would have put in there, because we didn't have as much a selection years ago. And what's happened is now we're serving the candida in our bowel, we're serving our sugar cravings, and also we're not getting enough amino acids in here. So I have a lot of people who are reacting to situations with severe stress, and really all it is they don't have amino acids going into their brain to feed them, to actually let the neurotransmitters do what they need to do, is to actually fire off, make a decision. So that's the key. You're so right about your bowel and that sensation of actually doing the right thing for yourself, because 70% of your immune system is there. If only people knew that, if only people would actually just take that little bit of advice and remember what you put in here is actually defining how you look, everything about your cell. And also I'm big into DNA and RNA, and also how the cell replicates. And it basically sheds every 3 months. So you have 3 months, you could turn around your whole body in 3 months to exactly what you want.
Yeah. I remember hearing that in an audiobook before, where you know, you are not the same physical self as you were when you were born. You know, that the cells change all the time, and that kind of blew my mind in a sense. You know, that where it's more about what's, you know, in terms of being a person, it's the spiritual side, and you know, and your mind and so on. But the actual physical being, the cells, like you said, they shed and they change all the time. That was something that kind of I didn't know, and it kind of blew my mind to think about that, to actually get my head around it, you know.
And also on an energetics level, your ancestors have given you certain traits, and also certain compulsions and certain addictions, and also certain cravings, and identifying who you are. But the wonderful thing about who you are right now is that you have the ability and capacity to shelve and move all those things that are negative for you, and embrace the things that are positive. And that's the difference, is that I often hear people, well, it's hereditary, you know, addiction and certain things that have happened to us. Oh, that's in the family, and that's it written off then. No, your DNA is so powerful that you even can sit, and there's been trials where you can sit beside music, and this is why I keep getting pulled back into music and creativity, is that the resonant tones and sounds of music and single notes and vibrational energy can have an effect on your DNA and can transform how that cell replicates as well. The same way music beside water can cause ripple effects. And if you think about your environment and what's happened to us now with everything, even our language, even the resonant tones of how we talk to each other has an imprint on each other. So it's all about awakening here and awakening here, and then making changes in yourself. And that's why I think on one level, what we have now is a blessing, because there's an awakening, there's a reconnection to self. And if you take that and do something, then you can't turn around and say, I never did.
Yeah, I think definitely with the way it is now, it's really given us a chance to kind of just, for me anyways, grinded everything to a halt. Like I was so busy with, drop me mic, so busy with businesses, and you know, even the lads talked about it. We never had time, you know, trying to get any of us nailed down to do a podcast because we were just so busy that this literally just stopped us, and has really kind of, you know, allowed me to kind of look at my life and go, well, you know, what's important to me, what's sacred to me, what values do I have, you know, what way do I want to go forward. And Mick talked about it on, you know, on a few of the podcasts actually, about, you know, hopefully the stuff that we learn, or I learn in this particular time, we can carry on afterwards when we go back to normal life. And yeah. I liked what you talked about there as well, about, you know, what we put into our system is so important, because, you know, the education that I grew up with in school, no one ever told me about that. No one ever told me, you know, I was never given a guide on how to, you know, look after probably the most important vehicle I will ever have for my entire life, my body. You know what I mean? My body carries my soul around, and no one ever said, right, okay, so this is the instruction manual for your body. This is what you need to take on a daily basis for this body to function. Yet we have these intricate, you know, manuals for, you know, when I bought my car, I was given this manual, all the stuff that I had to do with the car, how to service it, how to put oil in it, how to do this. But no one ever turned around to me and said, look, I'm not saying there isn't manuals out there, but when we grew up, we did in primary school or secondary school, right? Okay, so this is really important. You need to learn how to, you know, look after your body. Yeah. So yeah, I, like Mick, you know, I didn't understand it. You know, having a bag of chips from the local chipper and a burger wasn't sustaining my body on a regular basis. And, you know, I personally went through a massive, you know, when I gave up drinking drugs, I just put a massive amount of weight. And one of the things for me to change that was I read a book called Easy Way, which was kind of the principles of, you know, you are what you eat, really, you know what I mean? And yeah. No. Just because you can eat it doesn't mean it's the right thing for your body, you know. Yeah. Putting water.
But also there's a very crucial part of all of this as well, is that it's not just making decisions about food that is important for us. It's also challenging our self-will and our self-discipline, because there's nothing greater than actually walking away from something knowing you've walked away from it, and that you've been so powerful within yourself to say, no, that's not good enough for me, that I'm not doing that to myself. Because it's a wonderful thing that we don't do enough of, is to reward ourselves when we do well, because people are always going on about what I haven't done this, I haven't done that. How about what you have done? And I do think that's something we have to start doing for ourselves. So even when it comes to the crisis at the moment and where we are in our life choices, if we give ourselves a little bit more credit, then we'll be more inspired to do more for ourselves. So when you do actually say, no, that's not good for me, I'm not having that, it also rewards you on an energy level inside your body, where you actually go, do you know what, I'm fairly nice, you know, I'm a grand person, I'm strong, I'm powerful. Because one of the biggest things for everybody is that we have an internal dialogue that's constant, and it can be conditioned, it can be already there from before you're even born. I'm completely convinced of it, that there are certain energy traits in us that create who we are. But the good thing is that we have a choice to change everything. And if you can just trust and believe, I have this philosophy. If I work on, used to be a 3-month philosophy for attracting something, and now I try and do it in 48 hours. So say, for example, I'll say, right, Next week I'm going to be on telly, right? And then I don't focus on it. What I do is completely trust it and let it go. And that's it. Because that's the way forward. If you can do something good for yourself, or I'm going to plant a few plum trees in the garden next door, it's a physical action. But if you really want something in life, and you really are determined to make a difference to yourself and reward yourself with good plans of action, then the biggest thing for you is to totally trust. I think we lost a lot of trust as we went through life because stuff happens. And if you can just keep saying to yourself, okay, it's going to be okay. It is going to be okay.
I mean, for me, that's a massive thing, self-talk. I remember someone said to me once, they said, if someone talked to you the way you sometimes talk to yourself, would you consider them a friend? You know, and I thought that was brilliant because, you know, sometimes I can talk myself out, you know, I'm not good enough, I'm not able to do this, you know, and it goes back to that fear that we started with that stopped me from achieving many things in my life. You know, when I was in you know, primary school, I know what happened, but there's a switch in my mentality. I would love playing football. I played team games. I was in the local team. I went to secondary school and I just lost confidence in myself. And I went and played football for the local team once. Someone slagged me off and that was it. I pulled back, stopped doing it, didn't get involved, and just slowly kind of pulled back in class. And the funny thing is, you know, the things that I love doing is like, I like being involved with music. I do a little bit of production. I like being creative. I studied art. I like, you know, doing stuff that's creative. And there was a guy in my class who I always was jealous of because he had that confidence. He had that exact attitude. He's now a Hollywood actor, funny enough, Chris O'Dowd. And he was in the same class as me. And I always looked at him and I thought, oh, I'd love to be like that. I'd love to just not care and just go and do it and achieve things. And there's an example of, I'm not saying that, you know, right now I'm jealous of what he's doing, but it shows that, you know, he had something that I wanted, that I would say I have about 70% now, because I still struggle with that self-talk. And I, you know, the difference of his journey in the sense that he just went out and did it, you know what I mean, and achieved a lot. And that for me is a massive thing. And some days I do struggle with overcoming it, you know?
Yeah, well, you're doing really well. The biggest thing is that everybody has a different time, and there's no such thing as you only get one shot at it. And now that you've put it out there, you will attract it. And it's as simple as that, because it is about perfect timing. Because if that was the case, then I would have peaked a long time ago. I've done my little peaks, miniature peaks, but I think finally now I'm at a point where, you know, I believe it's a combination of every single tool that I've been amassing all my life. And perhaps that's what's happening with you as well, is that you're starting to see real true self-value. And you're saying to yourself, you know what, your dialogue now is changing. Like I injured myself twice in 3 years with my foot and hadn't been training. So I was saying, oh God, I wish it was, and I should do this, and I put on weight and all this. And then, you know what, I stopped and I went, you're a great body. You're wonderful. You're so healthy. You're brilliant. And you're doing fantastic. And I love you. And, you know, and I even just rubbed my little belly going, you know what, you're there for a reason. You were a mammy, you're a mammy, and you've had 3 children, but it's okay. Now put the plan of positive action in place to make it come to you. And I've been training for the past 2 weeks and I'm so delighted with myself. But the point was, I had to soothe myself and salve myself and nurture myself and love myself before that could happen, instead of criticizing myself, which was what I would do before I dropped something and go, oh, you're so stupid. And then I went, who the hell said that? And I don't say that to myself anymore. Not anymore.
Thanks a million, Marian. And I think that's a lovely positive note to finish the podcast on. We're really grateful you came on. We enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a million. And nice one, lads. Good to see you again.
Yeah, Marian, it's been a pleasure, honestly. That was great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marian, thanks a million. And just for our listeners, if anyone wants to get in touch or to, where can they find you?
Well, presently I have a website that I did myself that's fairly shite. It's marianshanley.com, and you can track me down on Facebook as well. And hopefully Colin can help me with the rest of that after I get it done. Look, I'm all out there, but basically you'll find me. Go marianshanley.com.
Great stuff.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Marian. Have a lovely
thanks,
day
guys.
and enjoy
God
the rest
bless.
of your...
Keep safe, guys.
Got to listen to that skull crack.